Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. Today we're going to start with a bit of a history lesson. We're going to look back at my Ficus microcarpa, the one I call Fancy. I'm going to go back in time since I started this channel and just see how many times I've pruned the tree and how many times I've repotted it. This tree is much older than my YouTube channel, the Bonsai Zone, and we'll go through each year. So I started the channel in 2014. And we'll go through each year and I'll tell you what operations I did all the years up to present day. We'll start in 2014. So the only thing I did in 2014 is I pruned it once in July. That was it. Then we go to 2015. So in July of 2015, I did my first defoliation. I root pruned the tree and repotted it. So big operations in July of 2015. Then in August, I did some more pruning. I was selective of all the new buds and the branches that grew in. More pruning in October of 2015 up top. And that brings us now to the year 2016. And in 2016, I started off in March. I did some root carving. There was a big bulge in the front of the roots, like an egg-shaped root. And I carved that out. I think I took out a lot of roots that were crossing in that, just tidied up the root base, and I did some top pruning. Then in August of 2016, the same year, I did pruning up to the top of the tree. In November, I did more top pruning. And that's it for 2016. So 3 operations in 2016, 2 in 2015, and 1 in 2014. That brings us to the year 2017. I only touched the tree once in 2017, and I did top pruning. And that brings us to the year 2018. In 2018, I did a lot of work. I top pruned the tree in March, the branches. I repotted the tree in April, so a complete repot. Then in July of 2018, I top pruned it again. In September of 2018, I top pruned. I did some root work on the surface roots again. And that's it for 2018. So in 2018, 1, 2, 3, 4 operations to the tree. And other than these operations, I just water and fertilize the trees and, keep them in the sun. And there's no pruning or anything involved. So that brings us to the year 2019 now. In August of 2019, so after the summer, I defoliated the tree and I did pruning to the top branches. Then in 2019, I did some more surface root work and I did top pruning also to the top of the tree, the canopy. And that's all. So in 2019, I did 2 operations, pruning and a bit of surface root work. Then in the year 2020, I did top pruning in March, so in spring. And then in August, so towards fall, I did more top pruning. So again, touching the tree twice in the year. So if you add up, the total amount of work or hours in the actual working on the tree, it's not all that much. A typical year, it's probably 4 hours of work on the tree, and the rest is just watering and fertilizing. So, yeah, that kind of answers the question. Now, this tree is far from being a finished bonsai tree, and I find as the trees get more and more mature and towards more of a finished state, which they're never finished, but towards a show-type tree state, the amount of work increases because you get more branches. It just, everything multiplies. So there's more work on the tree. And to keep it in a nice state, you can't just let them grow wild once they get towards the refinement stage. So this tree, I wouldn't say it's in the refinement stage yet. It's still in the developmental stage. I have a lot of work to do in the canopy and the branches still. There's a lot of straight sections, and as they thicken up, it'll be reduced again. And yeah, I would say there's a lot of work coming. Probably, I would guess 5, 6, 7 years before this is kind of looking really nice. That was a quick summation of all the work I did on the tree since 2014. I'm going to put the tree back in the basement now. This tree's been in cold storage down there, sitting at about anywhere between 5 degrees Celsius and about 9 degrees Celsius. And it seems to be doing fine. There's no problems with insects. I don't have to water very often, maybe once every 5 days. So it's kind of nice having them down there, keeping them trouble-free. Once I bring them up into the plant room, I've got to really watch for insects. The watering, if it's a sunny day, you have to water 2 or 3 times a day sometimes. So yeah, it's a lot easier to have them in the basement in cold storage. And so far they look really healthy. So I'll do that as long as I can until the basement temperature starts to drop even colder as it gets colder outside. I did bring all my Ficus benjaminas up from cold storage up into the plant room here. I noticed that the tips of the branches, the fine tips, were starting to die off. Here's a look at the tips of the branches, and the fine growing tips from summer were starting to kind of go brown and dry up, and the leaves are drying up. And I thought I better bring it up. They weren't liking the cold weather. But the other trees are doing fine. It's just, I think these Ficus benjaminas, they're a little more sensitive to the cold. I've had the Ficus benjaminas up in the plant room here, warming up for over a week now. And I'm just now seeing the first signs of some new growth. There's some new buds that are turning green and coming out on the branches. So I think it'll explode in growth in the next month or so. This year was kind of an abnormal year for me. I was working on this plant room, getting the roof put on and doing a lot of construction work. And that took me right up till, basically winter time. So the trees, all my tropical trees were in the greenhouse or in the basement in some pretty cold temperatures, especially in the greenhouse. I had the heat on, but it went down to, I think, -7 was the lowest it went down to. And I still had my trees out in the greenhouse. And depending on the placement in the greenhouse, some trees weren't affected at all. But I did get a few trees that were affected by the cold. Some in not so bad a way, and others fatally. This is my croton bonsai. It got hit by the cold, and it looks like it's fatal. I'll keep watering it, but it doesn't look good. Last year, I was getting work done on the plant room, and I had the same thing. The trees were out in some cool weather, and the parent tree of this cutting, it died in the cold too. So I don't think they can take cold very well. My princess earrings bonsai seems to have suffered too. No, I was going to say there's some green leaves on it, but they just fall off when you touch them. I haven't totally lost hope for this one, but it's not looking good. These are the seed pods from last year, so I'm hoping they matured enough that I can maybe plant some of the seeds and start some new ones. But I haven't given up hope on it. It's possible it just lost its leaves in the cold weather, and it might be growing back. Still seems flexible, the branches, so that's a good sign. So we'll keep watering this one and keep our fingers crossed and hope it recovers. My last tree that suffered in the cold weather is this Ficus microcarpa. Almost all the leaves slowly started turning crispy, except for a few up top, and now there's new buds coming out on the branches. So it's not lost this tree, it's just a bit of a setback. Some of the branches did retain their leaves, like this one and the one over here. On some of these other branches, I've got new shoots coming out on the branch here. And yeah, there's buds coming out here. So I think the tree's going to recover just fine. It looks like I may have lost some of these finer branches, but the basic structure is still there. And I'll just keep developing it. I think considering all the cold nights these trees went through in the greenhouse outside with snow and storms while I was working on the plant room here, I think I did pretty well, possibly losing 2 trees and maybe even less if the princess earrings recovers. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted on their progress. The first tree I'll be working on today is my Ficus elastica, and it's being grown in a clump style. I noticed that some of the more vigorous shoots were growing tall, and with the big leaves they were starting to shade out some of the smaller trunks from this clump style. So today I'm going to be doing a bit of leaf pruning, cleaning up the tree so all the trunks or branches get enough light. Here's an example. There's a trunk here and it's totally shaded out by this leaf. It's right over the growing tip and this trunk line is getting no light, and you can see it hasn't grown much. So I'm going to remove that leaf and give it some light so it can grow into a nice kind of mature trunk. Alright, I'll start by removing that leaf that's shading out that trunk line, like that. So now this has light. My goal for this tree is to have all the trunks thicken up and it'll fuse together at the base, creating a clump style tree. These are all kind of separate cuttings that I put together. So I want everything to kind of grow equally, so some of these shoots that are really vigorous, I'll have to prune the tops off them to kind of balance the tree so it kind of grows evenly. At the base of the tree, I have a branch coming off this trunk that's growing in towards the inside. I don't want that, so I'm going to prune that off, like that. There's also a trunk line coming from the inside here that kind of awkwardly crosses this trunk and grows up. And I'm not even sure if that was an original cutting or if it's a branch coming from the base of one of these trees. It looks very young. It looks like it's only, maybe shot up from last summer. So I could cut it off, remove it totally, or try and develop it into the design, which, I don't know. It's kind of growing at an awkward angle in there. I think I'll have to remove it. I think I've got to take it away totally. It's just, not growing in a good place. Bad direction. I could prune it off short, try and develop it more vertical up the center. Maybe I'll do that. I'll do that for now, see how it grows. So off it comes, like that. I'll clean up these dead leaves at the base here, or leaves that have fallen off, so we can see in there a bit better. I've got a branch coming off this one that's kind of going up the inside, which is all right. I could have a vertical one there. Yeah, so I want to balance the vigor, so now I'm going to come up top and look at all the vigorous shoots and prune them back. All right, I've got a vigorous shoot here. There's an old pruning stub I can prune off here, like that. And then I think I'll prune it off quite short to an outward facing leaf right to here, like that. There's a branch coming up front here that's gaining a lot of vigor. I'm going to prune that off also, like that. There's a big, strong one out the back, which I don't think has ever been pruned, and it needs pruning now. So I'm going to take the tip off here, like that. I'm going to remove any leaves that are facing towards the inside. So you can see this big one right here kind of overlaps everything in this direction. So I'm going to take that off. That'll get more light to some of these other trunks that are growing. There's another leaf in here I can take off, an inside one. There's one here, like that. Because these leaves are so big, it's important to keep light to all areas of the tree or they'll quickly get shaded out. I'm going to take off this lowest leaf here, just so it's a little easier to get in watering, and maybe this one too. And one over here. Raises the canopy so it looks a little more tree-like rather than a bush. And I think that's it for today on this planting. I think it's developing nicely, getting nice bark on the trunks. They're thickening up. Yeah, I'm looking forward to summer, seeing how well it grows. The next tree I'll be working on is one you haven't seen since 2016, and it was in a video called Starting 3 New Bonsai, and it's a tiny Ficus benjamina. Here's what the tree looks like today, and In the video in 2016, I did a fairly major cut on the trunk, reducing it down, and it's still there, but it's starting to heal over. There's a close-up of that big wound on the trunk, so it's about halfway closed over. I did lose a branch on this tree fairly recently. I think it must have been the cold weather, and that's this back one here. So I'll prune that off now. Like that. Everything else looks really healthy on this tree. I haven't touched this tree since that first video, so it's been growing 4 years in this pot. And I don't even know where the front is, so I'm going to have a look at it today, try and find a front, and I'm going to prune off a lot of these lower branches and start giving it some style. Right now it looks like kind of like a bush. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to prune off these branches. They're kind of growing on the inside of a curve, and I have one opposite them right here. So I don't need these branches here. They're just... And I might... There was 1, 2, 3, 4 branches all growing from the same spot here. So I might have to come in with my branch pruners and clean up that area. I'll start by just cutting the branches off to get them out of the way. This one too. And then I can come in with my branch pruners and clean up this area. Just like that. I'll take this little dead branch off here. Okay, so that cleaned up the lower part of the trunk a bit. I've got 2 branches growing from one spot here, so I'm going to take this weaker one off the back here. It's not very radial. It doesn't come out straight from the trunk. It comes out on an angle, so this one's a better looking branch. So that one comes off. And then I'm going to prune this one down. It's kind of reaching skyward. I don't mind it reaching up, but I want some, ramifications starting way back here. And I've got some good buds developing on the branch here, so I'm just going to take the tip off here. Like that. I've got the same thing happening on this branch. I got some new buds coming out. This tree was also recently moved up from cold storage, so it's about to start growing. I've got a funny branch here. This would be my leader, and I've got one growing right beside it, so I'm going to have to take that right off. And I think I'll have to use my branch pruners to get in there. Like that. I've got a branch here that's got new growth here, so I'm going to take the top off that branch like that. And that leaves me with one more branch over here, and not much happening. There is a little bud down here, so hopefully that'll develop and I can prune it off shorter later on. But for now, I'll just take the top off. And I'll prune this branch back like that. And that leaves me with the apex now. There's 2 possibilities with the apex. One is you let it grow. It helps thicken up the tree, heal the wounds. The only trouble with that is all the vigor from the tree will go up to the apex, and it'll leave these lower branches fairly weak. If I prune the apex off, the strength of the tree will go equally into all the branches. It'll be developing new shoots rather than just going to develop the leader. So I think if I left the leader as it is, I think these lower branches might eventually wither away and the leader will take over as the strongest branch on the tree. So to kind of balance the vigor, I'm going to prune it off. And there's a bud on the inside right here that will probably be the new future leader, but I want to leave some green growth on the tree, so I'm going to prune it off here for now. And then as these shoots develop, I can then further prune it back later on. The next tree I'll be working on is also a small tree. It's my Nutella ficus, and this was grown from a small cutting. This tree was starting to lose all its leaves. They were turning yellow and falling off. So I brought it up from cold storage up into the plant room here. And now I'm starting to get all these new shoots coming out on it. So it's ready to grow once again. I'm going to cut the tree back today, kind of getting a basic structure established. I've got this aerial root coming down from way up here. It's touched into the soil, and I want to keep that because it's hard to develop aerial roots from up high on trees. So I definitely want to keep that. I've got a branch growing towards the inside here that's crossing everything. I'm going to take that off like that. You can see how alive it is. There's white milky sap coming out of the wound. So it's very vigorous. This branch here, I've got a small branch down below, another one here, one up here. So I'm going to take that whole top off the branch. So I'll use my branch pruners for that, and I'll come in at a slight angle, like right there, like that. And I've got a new leader on that branch. I'm going to shorten this branch. It's getting quite long. It was pruned here once. I think I'll prune it here, and hopefully something will come out here and I can shorten it further. But for now, I'll just prune it off there. Now, so I want to keep this part, so I've got it dividing from 1 to 2 here, which is quite nice, and then there's a branch off here. I don't think I want that third branch, so I'll take that off. Being careful not to disturb my root there. And then I'll cut the tops back shorter. I'm going to cut it back on this branch to here. I will cut this one back. I'm going to cut it back to, I'm looking for a leaf scar right here. And then I'm going to cut the tops off, so I'm going to leave one longer than the other. So this is the thickest one, so it'll be the longest one, and probably to here, like that. And then the other one will be shorter off to here, like that. And that has got the tree pruned up. This section of the tree is a little straight, but that's okay. It'll look fine in the future. I'm going to prune off all these roots that are growing out from the bottom of the pot. You can see them here. I'm going to prune them off. I'd rather the roots grow in the soil. And they'll also thicken up and clog the drainage holes if you don't prune them off. There we go. It's a nice pot, this one. Made in Korea. There's a look at the Nutella ficus. I'm looking forward to developing this in the future. I think it'll need a larger pot eventually. I could have pruned some of these branches back a little more, but I'm going to see what happens. See if it gets new shoots coming out lower on the branches, and then I can take them back later on. But I think that'll do for now on this tree. It's ready to grow again. The last tree I'll be working on today is Wally's tree. I'll show you a picture of Wally with his tree. This tree is very old. It's probably 25 years old now. It's very small. Today I'm going to prune off the dead branches, reduce these live branches way back. I think I'm only going to grow the 1 leader and remove everything else. So it'll have that nice trunk line coming up, and I'll prune it off short. So here I go. I'm going to start by pruning off the dead parts of the tree. This is a Ficus religiosa, or bow fig they call it. This is the tree that Buddha was supposed to have his revelations while he was underneath the tree. So, okay, here goes that back branch. I don't want a back branch here. I want all my energy going into the leader. Something else may come out on here, but this is too thick compared to the rest of the tree. And you can see how long it is. It's really vigorous. So off it comes. Just got to get my pruners in here. I think coming in from this side is the best. All right, here I go. Like that. That's a good cut. You can see this tree is full of cuts on it. It's been pruned many, many times over the years. So the next step is to reduce that leader down. And again, this tree was in cold storage. and it's ready to grow. There's a bud on the inside I'm going to take off here. I don't want a branch growing out there. I'm going to clean up these pruning stubs from previous prunings. And then I've got to pick a height for this tree, so I think I want it about here. Off it goes. So it's just a stump, but a good looking stump. So the next step, I'm going to prune off these roots off the bottom so they don't clog the drainage holes as they thicken up. There we go. This tree was also featured in the video, Keeping Your Bonsai Trees Small. And I've certainly done that with this tree. It's, you know, this high and it's probably 25 years old. The pot it's in was sent to me by Gary, so thanks Gary. I'm still using your pot and the tree's still alive and growing. Yeah, so that's it for that tree. It's getting some nice character on it. It's, yeah, I'm very pleased with this little Ficus religiosa. There's a close-up of the bark and the character on the trunk, and I'm hoping to display this again with Wally someday at a bonsai show. It was nice to get some of those smaller trees pruned up, and that's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.